I finally played Punch-Out, and I have some thoughts about its game design because it actually has like a really nice, elegant game design flow for being such an early game. People talk about like game introductions, they always talk about Mario World 1-1. And they always talk about how that's such a wonderful, Miyamoto just perfected the game design of like a tutorial in game. You know, that's still true. But I think more people should be talking about Punch-Out. So with Punch-Out, I don't have a manual or anything. That's one thing to consider too. With these old games, people talk about, like, I remember Ego Raptor, one of his videos talking about Zelda. He was like, you just start off in this world and you don't know where to go or anything, and you don't know what these items are.
Zelda, you were an adventurer, and, well, seriously, that much wasn't even explained. You were just a green dude, walk to a cave. Old dude goes, hey, take this. You're like, okay, it's a sword. You're swinging at monsters.
Some of that is true, but there's a map. There's a map that comes with Zelda 1. And it's even got some maps of the first dungeons. It tells you that there are some secrets. There's even some secrets in some of the screenshots that give stuff away, like where some secret rupees are on one of the early start screens. I showed off this map before, I think. I don't know. It's one of my prized possessions. I don't have a lot of sentimental stuff, but all my Nintendo stuff I've always kept. It does matter that these early games, when we're talking about game design, they actually came with manuals. Back to Punch-Out. The thing about Punch-Out is when you play this game, it opens up and you're like, oh, I gotta fight somebody. And it's a boxing ring. And you've only got this like controller that's just got like 2 buttons. And when you do them, you hit the one on the right, you throw your right arm out. You hit the one on the left, you throw your left arm out. Okay, that works. And I think that's a good lesson because this intuitive design about like hardware to what you're doing. One of the reasons why a controller is never really going to go away is because you can have such a more fine-tuned way, even with like VR controllers. People want to go to the hands, and I've been doing some work with VR hands. Me and my fellow developer friends, we're all convinced that controllers aren't dead. That the VR hands are a very cool tool, very neat, awesome, and something that has a lot of benefits, but there's also a lot of cost to it. You lose a lot of ways, like finite ways you can interact with the game, and you lose synaptic feedback, and when you're holding most of the time in VR, you're actually holding things, and so having a controller actually helps with that feeling. That's a whole thing. But with a controller, with a simple game like Punch-Out, you can do these simple little physical things in the real world that line up with the game in a way that makes sense. It's like a DDR pad in the arrows. It's just things that just line up. They make sense. You don't have to explain it. And so that's the beginning. You can punch right, punch left. But this guy comes out and he looks freaking huge. And you are very, very small. And I think as they were probably prototyping the game, they were like, this works great if we make the person look super small so you can actually see the enemy. Little Joe, I think his name. No, is that the guy from Bonanza? I don't know. So, I've not played a lot of Punch-Out, but I was pretty impressed by this first few levels here, this first tutorial level. And you play a guy named Glass Joe. Glass Jaw Joe. You think Glass Jaw, right? If you start punching him and you can't land any hits because he's guarding low. And you think, how am I gonna punch Glass Jaw in the Glass Jaw? This is the first genius game design thing. They don't have to explain this. You press up and you already know intuitively, like A and B punches. And then you press up while you punch, and you punch up. And you actually uppercut and you punch him in the face. Makes sense, right? And it was a fun moment. No one had to explain that to me. I did it, and I was like, I got him in the jaw. And it worked too. It worked really well, and because he's very bad at guarding the face. So you block his face some, but you start punching him in the face. You start getting this really good feeling. But it's not easy I lost to Glass Dojo like twice in a row. And I was like, how come this old game's kicking my butt? Now, it is true, older games tended to be harder. The last interesting thing I learned about Punch-Out, it has a stamina system. Way back then, if someone asked me like when the stamina system was invented, I would have said much later. I thought it was like a 3D games kind of invention. But it turns out stamina has been around since Punch-Out. And the way it reads games is intricate too. I couldn't quite tell you how yet. Still investigating the game. But I just thought it was fascinating, like a very early concept of stamina. And that does a great job, because what you want to do when you're learning the game, one of the reasons why you lose to this guy you're supposed to be able to beat so easily, is because you just kind of start spamming it, right? Like Dark Souls, you spam the dodge and you spam attack and you lose. And Punch-Out is the same way. Because of the stamina, you spam it and you lose. So there's no spam attacking a Punch-Out. So you try it and you start losing, I guess. So thank you so much for watching. I like to do these little game design nugget breakdowns from time to time. This is a channel where we talk about games I'm making, games that inspire games I'm making. We have a podcast where me and another developer friend talk about game design in depth. So if you're interested in the process of making games, we're probably going to have a few tutorials. This is not going to be a tutorial channel, but there might be some kind of fun tutorials and things about programming and stuff, because I like the technical side, I like the design side, I like the art side, I like making games. So if you like making games and like talking about making games, especially VR games, because that's what I'm about, you're in the right place. Thanks so much for watching. This is Space Dodo. I'll see you guys next time.